Holly Whitaker. Holly Glenn Whitaker.
I mean, they kind of cut the Glenn out now.
They kind of did, right? You're just Holly Whitaker.
I guess so, yeah. I didn't really do that. Someone else did.
It just happened. You're like, where's the Glenn? It's gone.
It just disappeared over time, yeah.
Have you ever been fired from a job?
Oh, God. No, I haven't.
Never.
Never, no.
We have a long string of overachievers.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Can you tell us then about your worst job?
Oh, well, I mean, my first job was cleaning like I worked at a pet store. My first job was like cleaning up. I worked in the small animal department, so I cleaned up like rat poop and mouse poop and dog and cat.
Did you wear like a mask and gloves and all that?
No. It was a disgusting animal shop.
And the fact that you didn't get fired is really impressive.
No, they tried to keep me when I left. Right. But I would say like actually my worst job, my first year, I worked at Deloitte & Touche, my first year of accounting. That was the worst year of my life. It was an awful, toxic environment. And I quit like exactly within a year of starting that job.
Wow.
So, yeah. It was horrible. Working at a big 4 firm in Silicon Valley.
So if you had to compare the rat poop job,
I would have rather like cleaned animal cages all day. Yeah, I lost. I mean, I think that has a lot to. It ties back into the stuff I write about because that was when I realized, oh my gosh, all these things I've been working for. Like I was right out of college. I got $52,000 a year. I was like the top of my class. It was like supposed to be like everything, and then I was dead inside. I hated what I did every day. Yeah.
I know that feeling.
Yeah. Like you've gotten there and then all of a sudden this is it.
Right.
And I have to now hold on to this for the rest of my life.
And then for me, I was like looking around at everybody else going, this makes you happy?
Yeah.
Like this is what you wanted? Because it's not doing anything for me.
Except killing me
Except
slowly.
for killing me. Yeah. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
I am Laura Cathcart Robbins. This is the only one in the room, but I am never the only one in this room because, as usual, my boyfriend, producer, and co-host, Scott Slaughter, who I call Hun, is here as well.
Hi, honey.
Hi, honey. Hi, Hun. So I was thinking about, like, the past month or so, you can't open a newspaper or a magazine without reading an article by or about Holly Whitaker and her journey with alcohol and sobriety.
Right, the New York Times, the Washington Post, Time Magazine.
Or Elle, or Vogue, or Self, or Refinery, or Cosmopolitan. She has started a firestorm, and all of a sudden, it seems as though everyone's talking about sobriety, which, of course, is not a new subject for us.
Right. Yeah. When you're sober for a little while, your awareness about how society pushes or talks about alcoholism is sharpened.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, alcohol is everywhere. You can't sit down at a restaurant or buckle your seatbelt on a plane without someone offering you a drink.
Right. When you say you don't drink, people don't seem to know what to do with you.
Right. They either feel sorry for us or they want to commend us for our quote-unquote discipline.
Right. It's like they think that when you see a glass of wine, you're like, oh, please, keep that away from me. I might drink it.
I think people get confused. Like, they can't imagine life without alcohol, but we don't think of it as life without alcohol. We just think of it as life.
Right. Well, I know Holly has a lot to say about this, so why don't you introduce her, honey?
Happily. Holly Whitaker is CEO of Tempest, a digital modern recovery program which she founded in 2014. Holly's been featured in the New York Times, like we said, Vogue, and TechCrunch, and was named in Inc.'s 2019 Female Founders 100 list. What? Okay, wait. Holly's been featured in the New York Times, Vogue, and TechCrunch, and was named in Inc.'s 2019 Female Founders 100 list. Holly is a writer and best-selling author of Quit Like a Woman, a memoir/self-help book about her own recovery.
Hello and welcome, Holly.
Thank you.
Welcome, Holly.
Thank you for having me. That is the most impressive introduction I think I was like sitting there and I was like, wow, okay, things are going good.
Yeah, they are.
We want you to feel safe here.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
Put you on a pedestal.
Thank you. I do feel safe.
Mm-hmm. You've done good.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to ask you to finish the sentence for me.
Okay.
I am the only one in the room, or I was the only one in the room who...
Quit like a woman.
Yeah. And then do you want to do the other one as well?
Sure.
I was the only one in the room who...
Quit without AA.
Yeah. So I have a quote from your book that I was going to read, if that's okay.
Please.
I had a bed My bed had no sheets. My mattress was stained with food, wine, and puke. My computer was still on, so was the TV. And the bags of trash and half-eaten food cartons and empty beer bottles were strewn about my apartment. My throat ached of bulimia and hangover, and I was still drunk. A pint of Jameson was in my hand. It wasn't the first time I'd woken up in this scene, but it was the first time I couldn't make myself pretend that I was okay, and that this was normal 30-something shit I grew out of.
Yeah.
Is that in the new book as well?
Yes.
Okay. Because I have a galley. I have a galley copy of the book, and apparently there have been some changes. I want to make sure. I love that quote. You can probably figure out why I chose that quote to read, because I wanted you to talk a little bit about what it was like for you.
Yeah. I mean, it was like 2 different lives. It was a life that had that happening behind the scenes, and that was happening behind the scenes to allow me to carry on in my life outside of that.
Yeah.
And so it feels like a totally different life and a totally different situation. But that morning, it was a Tuesday morning, and I woke up, and it was, I had to drink myself and smoke myself to sleep. I would wake up at like 3 or 4 in the morning sometimes, and I would either like find booze and take a shot again, or I would smoke pot. And then I would get up and I would go to Starbucks, and I'd get like a venti red eye and a bacon Gouda sandwich. And then I would like pull myself together and somehow make it into work and pretend like I wasn't dying, which I was, and like physically dying, sick. And I think I don't even know. I think when you're in that, you cannot see past that. You cannot see how you will ever get out of the cycle of that.
No. And so at that point, did you want to stop drinking?
No. And that's so clear from the book that I bought 2 nights later, which was The Easy Way to Control Alcohol. Because to me, it was just like, you're supposed to make this work, and if you can't, then it is a really bad situation for you for the rest of your life. You're going to always just want alcohol. You're going to always just struggle. Like, that was in my mind what it would be like to not drink. And so to me, it was just, I knew it was so out of control, but in so many areas in a way that it had always been out of control. I had always been in an extreme amount of pain, and always had to manage that and manage my cyclical nature. I'm very cyclical and very sensitive and emotional, and I feel things, and I think there was just, for me, no way to get past and out of that. And it wasn't even just about drinking. It was just about dying, while I was alive, and not seeing a way out of life, to be honest.
So you say you were in a tremendous amount of pain.
Yeah.
Do you mean emotional pain or physical pain?
Well, at that point, physical pain too, but emotional pain. I think I can identify feeling depressed, and I took diet pills when I was in 5th grade. I just never felt comfortable in my body, or like I belonged. And when my parents divorced when I was pretty young, I had depression. I was depressed, and I think that I never got to that. I never got to address that, and I thought there was something so wrong with me for how I felt. Yeah. And so from high school on, it was always trying to fix that, to fill that hole, and to be to become something I thought that would alleviate that. And I thought if I got a good job and I made good money and I had a good body and I had a husband and kids, and if I filled it up with these things I was supposed to have, it would make all these things go away. But that's just not how it works.
Yeah. Did alcohol help that feeling? Did it alleviate that pain?
Not the way pot did. I think alcohol always always made things worse, my body is really sensitive to it. It makes me flush immediately, bloat immediately. The hangovers were always incredibly painful. I think alcohol gave me a sense of oftentimes intimacy, or, excitement, or just allowing myself to kind of break out of something. It was just also so easy to access. But I did not feel like alcohol normalized me the way I felt like pot normalized me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just to keep on the thread of alcohol, can you tell me, because I'm fascinated by what you've learned about alcohol.
Yeah.
And what it does to us. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think one of the things that people don't understand is just like it's interesting because we have this really clear idea about most drugs, most illicit drugs, and about tobacco, but we don't really have that idea around alcohol. We think it's really healthy if you use it really carefully, and only unhealthy if you use it irresponsibly. Right. But the way that I like to break it down is it's like anything else. A glass is a dose. It's a neurotoxin. It is a toxin. It is something that our body immediately is trying to dispel itself of because it's a toxin.
Yeah.
It essentially like hijacks the detox process. So I think this is always so interesting when you see yoga classes that are paired with alcohol consumption, because it is like it's typically like I'm gonna detox and then retox, but the truth is like it's a lot of tox, and like it is really hard to get it out of you. The way it leaves our system is typically through aspiration. It like, first of all, it hijacks like the liver processing, so everything else that your body is trying to eliminate, alcohol cuts in line. And then also it's something that has to leave through your blood vessels. It leaves through like oxidation, and so like it causes blood vessels in your face to break. It causes puffiness. It like ruins your sleep cycles, and so like it does. I mean, I could go on. It's like linked to 7 types of cancer, and like those cancers are anything that is like the cancers that develop where alcohol touches us when we consume it. So breast cancer, stomach cancer, liver cancer, like. So there's so many different things that it does to us. And if you think about it, like this is what I always like to come and think of. Like when you are trying to kill germs on your hands, you use what? Like hand sanitizer, which is filled with alcohol. Like we use it to kill things on the outside of us, and then we can't really make the connection that when we're putting that same substance within us, it's doing that same thing to our insides.
Yeah. Well, I liked, there was a paragraph about ethanol. Or maybe it was a page, and what other uses ethanol has.
Yeah.
Like rocket fuel.
Yeah,
and,
like rocket fuel and paint
industrial
thinner,
cleaner.
like,
and,
yes.
And then how ethanol is also alcohol, the alcohol that we drink.
Put in our bodies.
Yeah. Which is just, when I read that, I was like, what? I like looked at the back of the book.
Yeah.
Is this real? Yeah.
My mom, I mean, like that came up, like I read that years ago, and then my mom was talking, a lot of members of my family have died from alcohol-related deaths, and one of my cousins had just passed away, or she was dying at the time, and I just made that comment, like she was drinking the same thing that we put in our fuel tanks.
Yeah.
And my mom was like, but it's not the same thing. And it's just, I mean, my mom is very health conscious. Like she knows what she's putting in her body, and it was one of those moments of like, no, it's the same thing. It's literally the same derivative.
Why do you think that people are unwilling to see it as the same because they want to continue to drink it in ignorance? Or do you think that the messaging that we're getting from big alcohol through our society is masking the other information that people, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all of the above. I think that when we are part of something, like when we are doing something, like let's just say it's like even, let's talk about eating meat. Like, I mean, I think a lot of us will not want to read books on veganism if we're eating meat, because what does that do to us?
Right.
And so there is a sense of denial that takes place to allow us to engage in behaviors we don't want to stop or examine whether or not those behaviors are hurting us.
Right.
So I think there's that piece of it. I do think that there is like how it's been sold to us and marketed to us, and especially like since the 90s, since this whole idea of like red wine and like healthy, heart healthy and healthy in moderation. I think like we are just so like tied into that messaging, that, and also the messaging around who can't drink it, and who can't drink it are really sick people, alcoholics who have an allergy to it.
Yeah.
And everyone else is fine. And so the messages that I got when I started talking about this oftentimes were, you need to just admit you have a problem with it, and don't ruin it for other people.
Right.
And I thought that was so interesting because like I watched the Dr. Oz show this one time, and this woman who had smoked for years gets up and says, hey, if you haven't started smoking, don't start. And if you do smoke, quit. And you just think about, like, what if I stood up and said, hey, everyone, if you haven't started drinking, don't start. And if you are drinking, quit. Everyone would say, like, you know,
you have a problem with it.
You have a problem with it. So,
but cigarettes are the problem. We kind of agree on that as a society, but we don't agree on the fact that alcohol is the problem.
Yeah. Or not even the problem, but like that's a part of the problem. I mean, like, this isn't to say like people don't have any sort of personal responsibility or like that they can't make choices.
Sure.
But it is like to say that yes, largely we just look at cigarettes and we say like cigarettes are bad, but we look at alcohol and we say like some people are bad with alcohol.
Mm-hmm. Tell me about what happens to women when they drink and like regarding safety and that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's really tricky, right?
Yeah.
Because at the same time, like, you can't really blame alcohol for rape culture, right?
No.
Like, and it's such a specific, nuanced conversation because like rape cult, like patriarchy and rape culture causes rape and sexual assault.
Yeah.
But alcohol does play a huge role in that. And when you start looking at the stats of like, I mean, like on college campuses, it's like linked to up to 90% of all sexual assault cases.
90%.
90%.
Wow.
And like there are some studies that prove it to be more, and that's victim and perp, right? And so I think it comes back to, this is like the unfortunate piece of rape culture, which is that we are, as women, supposed to protect ourselves from it instead of, like rapists, not raping. And so I think it's one of those things that's a conversation that's really tricky to have, but it is to say that like this is something that is involved in a lot of things that happen to us. It's also involved in a lot of domestic violence, a lot of crime, a lot of violent crime, homicides, all sorts of things are linked to it and its use. So this is a larger part of like, the society we live in. Alcohol doesn't cause those things. It definitely exacerbates those things.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, like you said, and I know you said this in the book as well, that a lot of these things just wouldn't happen if alcohol wasn't a player in the game.
Yeah.
Especially rape and date rape, as it were.
Yeah.
So on page 101 in my book, there is a description of the cycle of addiction.
Yeah.
Can you articulate that for me? Do you want me to read it?
Do you want to read it?
Let me see if I can find it.
Probably.
Really quickly. Let's see. Let's see where to start. Okay, it's long, so I don't want to read the whole thing, but so when we drink alcohol, artificial high levels of dopamine are released into the brain. A glass of wine will release more dopamine than good sex, good chocolate, or good coffee. The above normal level of dopamine tells our brain that alcohol is really good at keeping us alive. So the brain sends out higher levels of glutamate to lock in the experience. We remember the experience of drinking a cold glass of Chardonnay on a hot summer day more than we remember eating the slice of apple pie or drinking a kale smoothie because of this neurobiological process. If we drink enough alcohol over a long period of time, this cycle locks in and our brains identify alcohol as necessary for survival.
Yeah, and I think it's so interesting because when you think about this, it locks in, and that survival instinct, like our survival instinct, it thinks in the next, in terms of like the next 15 seconds, right? Yeah. So a lot of people will decide they want to quit drinking, and then they'll just, I work with a lot of people, and the story is, I want to, my intent is to not, and then just out of nowhere, I'm just naturally pulling into the liquor store, walking into the liquor store, and I'm buying the bottle of wine, and then I'm opening it, and it just feels like my body is like taken over. And it's your survival instinct, right? Like it is, your brain has prioritized drinking. It is like mixed in with the belief that this is going to keep you alive and this is what you need.
Right.
And so, it's a really vicious cycle. And understanding it, like for me, especially, like it was like freedom to understand, like it's not because you're just a bad, weak person. I mean, there's actual like biological processes that are happening that lock in, like especially when it comes to a substance that has, is an addictive substance like alcohol or,
But it doesn't have to be a substance, does it?
No, it can be a behavior.
It could be a behavior.
Yeah,
it could be gambling.
absolutely.
It could be shopping. It could be sex.
Yeah, the hit that we get from gambling does the same thing to our dopamine.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
It is really interesting.
Yeah.
That I needed to recognize my alcoholism, and that I needed to then live my life around my alcoholism and minding the traps around me and being hypervigilant of it. I had a hard time boiling everything down to it being my alcoholism that was the root of my problem. So I felt like an outsider in that room, very much so. And I kept what I believed to myself, and I went through the motions of what was expected of me, right? And I think it was just, but I would go to those meetings and I would want to shake people and be like, because I thought it was a beautiful thing that was happening to me and an exciting thing, and I was excited to, I wanted to not drink at that point.
Yeah.
And I felt like, I mean, you know, this is like in my own process, I felt like, oh, no, this can be the best thing that happened to you. Like, this is, like, we're going to grow from this. Like, our whole life is stretched out in front of us. It's not sad. And it just felt like a very different experience for me compared to what everybody was going through in the room. And I'd also been mourning for 6 months at that point.
Mourning.
I think that what I'd done to myself, you know, like you stop drinking and you stop numbing, and then all of a sudden it just swims to the surface, and all of it all, like, is just the pain you have been managing and bearing forever and numbing and not metabolizing. It finally is like, oh, great, I get to, like, pass through you now. And so I had been in that process for a while, and I think the meetings were fine. It was just they weren't saving my life. And I also felt I just, like, people would note it. Like, I felt watched, and I felt like afterwards, I think one of the things that was so important to me as part of my process was, like, starting to become my own person and to trust myself and to trust my process. And I never had done that before. And then I would go there, and afterwards, you know, someone would say, like, I noticed you're not working with a sponsor. I noticed that you only came to a couple meetings last week. I noticed, like, just so you know, this is going to get you if you don't do it this way. And that felt, and that scared me. Like, in a way, I wasn't scared of a lot at this point. I was scared of that conversation. And the fear, I later unpacked it. It was the fear of other people knowing something, other people knowing better, and, like, this fear of me, like, deluding myself. And I had to come to this place of understanding, I actually self-selected into this. No one pushed me into this. For 6 months, I have been dedicating my life, you know, and at that point, probably like 8 months, dedicating my life to healing myself. And then I'm getting these messages of, you're doing it wrong, or you're not taking it seriously. And I was like, how much more seriously, like, do I need to be taking this? And it just felt, I think it felt, of all things, the wrongness that I was trying to, like, the wrongness of being questioned for making choices for myself that I felt were in alignment with what I needed and believed. And that was the scary part. That was the part that I think, like, you know, was what I navigated for a long time thereafter. Regardless of being in AA. So that's really interesting. I really like how personalized you made the experience, and I can hear the intentionality in not judging the experience for other people when you're speaking. How did you stop? Like, I know you stopped that day, but how did you stay stopped? If it wasn't the 12-step meetings you were going to, what do you think was the catalyst for you having that freedom? I think there's so many things. I think I finally wanted to live. I think I have a really strong, I'm not religious, you know, but I believe in God, and I believe in Jesus, and I believe in Buddha. I mean, all of that finally started to, like, the meaning of why we might be here, like, existentialism played a huge role in this. How I was almost dying, and then how I stopped. I think there was, like, so many things that happened that Tuesday morning that I write about in that book. I had this experience, and I haven't really talked about this that much, but, like, I woke up.
I'm going to stop you for a second, because you got really emotional then.
I'm looking at your eyes, and I'm crying because I'm looking at you. That's why. Because I think, like, sometimes it's like we talk about this, but we've been through this experience together. We both know what I'm talking about. So I'm looking at your eyes, and I'm crying because you're kind of crying.
I am. Yes. Well, because you said, you know, you were almost dying. Like you were headed there, and then you had an experience which allowed you to stop.
When I actually got emotional was when you said, I see the intentionality behind letting everybody have their own experience. Because I think that is the point, which is letting everybody have their own experience. Yeah. That is. But then now we're talking about this, which is super emotional. But it is. It's far away and it's always close. Oh my God. Are you getting Kleenex out of your...
I was looking for it. I brought you water, but I didn't bring that.
Here you go.
Next time, I promise.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
But this is like such a special story. So I woke up that Tuesday morning, the day that I was like, I can't do this anymore. I woke up and I literally, I was bulimic too, and we haven't talked about that, but I was severely bulimic. And, I would eat sometimes a few $100s worth of food a day and then throw it up in cycles as I was drinking, as I was smoking pot. And then I'd go to work. Yeah. And lead a team of like 20 and be like, and so I had that morning when I woke up, it was after a multi-day bender, and I would order in food. I was afraid to take my trash down to the recycling. So I'd let it stock up until I could do it at like 4 a.m. or, some secret time. And so my apartment literally was just full of trash bags of rotting food. And there was it's sloppy. So there's beer on the floor. And like, I woke up again, no sheets on the bed, that whole situation. And I just was like, it was like waking up, and I crawled on my floor and I screamed, and I just was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't, help me, please. And then I go to Starbucks to do my thing, to pull it together, and I walk back into my building, and I'm so drunk still, or just in that alcohol haze, and there's a guy that was just recently let go from my job in the lobby of my building. I'd worked with him for years. He's just standing there talking to my building manager. And I was like, let's call him John. I was like, John, what are you doing here? And he's like, I'm moving into the building. And I was like, I couldn't even mesh it together. And he's like, let's go on a walk. So we go on a walk, and I'm just dying. And he's telling me this story, and he goes, you need to make sure and tell, Dr. Ross, because I worked in healthcare, Dr. Ross, give Dr. Ross this message. So I'm babysitting Dr. Ross's kids 2 nights later. So I'm like, okay, I'll tell him this thing, And so then, and then I don't see the guy again for probably, I don't know, a year. He was there just that morning, and he gave me this message, and 2 nights later, I end up on BART with Dr. Ross. I'm on my way to his house, and we end up on the same BART train, coming from different locations, and we're on his way to his house, and it gives us a minute to talk before he's heading out with his wife. And I said, oh, by the way, I ran into John, and because we hadn't seen him for a month because he'd left, and I was like, he wanted me to tell you this. And so it caused us to have this conversation about mental health. And he goes, I think John has borderline personality disorder. Oh. And at least he exhibits those signs of it. And the second he said that, I was like, oh my God, I have borderline personality disorder. That was what I rolled it all up into, which, it's addiction. But that night, Dr. Ross leaves, and I I realize now that that's from ER. He leaves, and it's like George Clooney leaves. And I put his kids to bed, and I researched borderline personality disorder, and it's you need to stop drinking if you have this. And I was like, oh, I need to stop drinking. And so I don't know how to explain the sequence of events, or that I was even able to see the sequence of events and how impossible it was. Yeah. But that was my way in. And it happened the second I asked for help. The second that I said, I need help, however this works, John is dropped into the lobby of my building. Right. And things like that. And it's just, to me, it was about paying attention to these things, but things like that just started to pick themselves, that started to happen. So when you ask how I got sober, it's because I started paying attention. And these things that started to come together and come into view, just that was, I would say, the thing that kept me going was I could not deny what a miracle life could be. Yeah. And I did a lot of therapy. Then I did all of the stuff that we do to help us, get sober. But that was the thing, which was the piece where all of a sudden I felt like life could actually be more. Yeah. Yeah. I thank you for that. Yeah. Thank you.
Because I was feeling emotional about, your story and your intentionality and how broad you're trying to make this process so that anybody who wants it
has it.
Can, or at least have access to it.
That's right.
However it works for them. You have a lot in your book that is devoted to how you do this on a daily basis. The things that you have eliminated from your life and the things that you've added in. In order to be as free as you are. Do you want to talk a little bit about those?
Sure.
I know you have a morning ritual.
Yes.
You want to tell us what that is?
Yeah. So this I started to do when I first got sober, and it was just essentially like realizing, coming back to how you were talking about, you read the piece about how the addiction cycle works. Well, we have an event happen. It kicks off a dopamine cycle, and it gets locked in with glutamate. And that is that locks in everything that's associated with the memory, all sorts of sensory things. So taste, smell, sound, the time of day, the way the sun feels on you, all of that locks in to create a construct that keeps us to remember going back. So one of the things that I have been intentional about is making multisensory rituals, meaning the morning starts with hot lemon water. And there's multiple things that hot lemon water does for you, but one of the things it also does, it's just a thing that has a specific taste to it, and also a smell, and also a sensation. Hot lemon water in your stomach first thing in the morning is a very good feeling, especially when you've been putting things in your body for a long time that don't feel very good. So hot lemon water mixed with some sort of positive intention. That is so important. The thoughts we feed ourselves. Some sort of positive messaging, some sort of intention or mantra for the day, and a meditation, you know? And so right now I'm doing a 20-minute meditation in the morning, but when I started doing this, it was just a 5 or 6 or 7 minute meditation, simply reading a couple words, drinking something healthy in the morning. And just that, instead of waking up, looking immediately at social media or the news, drinking coffee, eating sugar, jacking my blood sugar, throwing me into the day with this kind of disaster energy versus throwing myself into the day with this really intentional energy. It makes all the difference. So that was one piece of it, and it was just a simple thing I could do, because what you start doing at the beginning of the day is going to help you deal with the stuff at the end of the day a lot better. I also I incorporate positive affirmations, which always sounds so woo when you say it, but it works really well. So having reminders on my phone pop up, putting Post-its, so I'm just remembering I can change my thinking, I can change my thinking, I can change my thinking. Meditation has been a huge part of this. I'm a daily meditator. I rely on it. I incorporate breath work into that, and then a yoga practice, exercise. I mean, my friend Laura McCowan runs, my friend Kath Gray runs. That was their meditation. Mine was just going to a lot of yoga classes.
You is it Kundalini?
Yeah, I like Kundalini, and I also I've done more asana focused practices. So I'm certified to teach vinyasa. I do a lot of vinyasa, which is a form of hatha yoga. But yeah, you can kind of throw me into any yoga class, and I'm pretty happy. But yeah, and I love Kundalini. I'm certified to teach that too.
You also had you had another section on brushing your teeth at night, which I thought was really interesting, and I think it might even start there when you're talking about your new habits. It might start with that you just had fallen asleep without brushing your teeth for so long, right?
Yeah, and this is a pretty universal thing. Since I've talked about because it's this actual act of self-love and self-care. And I actually have a friend that never was addicted but struggled deeply with depression, who when I talked about it was thank you. I wouldn't brush my teeth. And I also was, again, I had an eating disorder, so I had a lot of stuff that was going on in my mouth that wasn't healthy. And I was so resistant to the practice, but I also wanted to brush my teeth every night. And so this is just talking, this is really just operant condition. This is just you actually go and you have a cue. For me, my cue is it's time to go to bed. I go in, I do the routine, I brush my teeth, you get a reward. I love the feeling of clean teeth. I actually can't stand it when my teeth have when I brush my teeth multiple times a day now. But
isn't it funny? It is rewarding.
It is so rewarding. But it is just, it's this it seems so small, but it was such a huge step for me to be a person that I was it is the small things. That was My friend Robin Canner, we just did an event at the Wing, and she was saying it was like she heard somebody when she was, before she quit drinking, when she was really in it, she heard this woman talking about how she would go to the farmer's market and just get fresh fruit. And, like, that was her, like, daily ritual. And Robin was like, can you imagine? It was just this simplicity.
Yeah.
And that was what I craved.
And it seems unfathomable when you're not there.
Yes, it does.
How could who has fresh fruit on their table, right? Or flowers?
It does. And how can you get joy from that? And it was those things that I had coffee creamer. I always made sure I had coffee beans and creamer in early sobriety, and I was just like, it would give me such a sense of accomplishment
and safety, right?
Yes,
security,
and also just normalcy.
Yeah.
Normalcy.
I want to talk to you about a couple more things. We'll see if we have time for both.
I want to just check this too, because I'm having a little. Are you hearing me? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So it's me.
Are you like hearing an echo or something?
No, I just hear it going in and out, and I think it's because I'm pulling on the cord a little bit.
Oh, yeah, probably.
Okay.
We can hear you fine.
Okay, great.
Yeah. I wanted to talk to you about relationships.
Yeah.
The difference in your relationships.
Yeah.
Since you've stopped drinking, since you're sober.
Yeah.
And before.
Yeah.
I want to talk about friendships and romantic relationships. Which one do you want to start with?
Let's start with romantic.
Okay.
That's wild.
Yeah. So prior to sobriety,
I was looking for someone to save me, and I would have taken anything. I was a taker. I did not know my value. I could not break up with anybody. I couldn't let anybody go. And I was so out of control, and in that way, and so deeply longing for someone to just fix me, take me, save me, want me, love me, make me feel like a human, or the human I think I'm supposed to feel like.
Yeah.
And just feeling terminally undateable. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then, so since you're sober,
the same at first and worse.
Really? For how long do you think?
Oh my God, I feel like because I could probably see it so much more clearly.
Yeah.
I talk about this, that I feel like I started at about 5. I was on the playground, I was chasing boys. I think I didn't date for the first year of sobriety.
Okay.
I did.
That was a conscious choice?
Yeah, I didn't want it, couldn't care, was super obsessed with like God and I was obsessed with like, whoa, like whoa, trees, oh my God, the sky, and like I just didn't have time I had no time for it. I also started working on my business plan like before I even got sober. So I was obsessed with figuring out, how do I bring this together, and I ended up I started dating a couple guys at the same time, and I just, like, one of them, I just was so, it was just addiction. It was just so, I was so codependent. I was so obsessed. I was my most infantile self. I was coaching people in sobriety, and, like, I was so, in some ways, emotionally mature and intelligent. And then all of a sudden, this chick would come out of nowhere, and she'd be sending 30 text messages to this guy.
Where'd she come from?
I don't know. And then I would just be like, I couldn't reconcile the person I was, and like also he would, the guy I was into would call me psycho, and like I couldn't reconcile. In this one area, I have no self-worth, and in this other area, I'm developing this like incredible like self-love, and then I just like I had such a long experience of going through so many. I couldn't get a date. Like I was stood up like so many times. I was rejected so many times through the last 7 or 8 years, and it just also but I was also open to it, and I was also willing to learn from it, and so this was my work. My work was on using relationships with men, and the places that I fell short, or the places that I was just still so wounded, I would have consciously chosen to not go into it, but it also kept presenting itself to me. And so it was just it's been the lesson, and it's probably been the thing I've written about the most, and also the thing I've worked on the most. I'm in a relationship now. And it is so, it's so weird. It's like, it's so healthy.
It's strange, right?
I don't even know how he exists. He's actually mature and kind and loving and generous and emotionally available. And I know.
Yeah.
But it's just, but I also had to become the woman that could
receive that.
Yeah, that's right.
And add to
recognize
it.
it and want it. I mean, to me, like at first when I met him, I was like, God, this is so, like, where's the like butterflies and the drama, and where's the, like, where is that, like, right? And it's so different, and I would have never ever been able to be in this relationship even just a year ago or 2 years ago. So, and I'm still, I mean, it's not like, oh, now I'm done. I mean, I'm still, in that process, and will always be in that process. But romantically, I've grown up. I started this as a child, which I'm, not ashamed of in any way. I mean, it was just, we come out of this and we're like, oh, there I am. There's where this stopped developing.
Yeah.
And
Well, a lot of times I've heard that people say, wait, you stop developing emotionally when you start drinking and using.
I would say that.
I think it stunts it,
accurate.
or it's been said that it stunts it. So tell me about friendships.
Yeah, I think friendships that was a lot harder and easier in so many ways. I had always desperately wanted to be liked, and I was, again, a taker, and I did not, like, have standards in my relationships. And also my relationships were based on judgment and gossip, and it was just such a different, the quality of my relationships and what we centered our friendships around were so different.
Did you have to let go of any friendships?
I think
when you
all
got
of
sober?
them. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And not like immediately. I let go of them. Like, the opportunity continued to present itself.
Yeah.
And, there were people early on that were just kind of, jerks about, and completely unsupportive, but also, like, specifically jerks about my not drinking. And then there were just, like, people that were unsupportive. And then there were toxic dynamics that I was done with. Yeah. And then there was this, like, period of, really, like, I mean, it was all very lonely. And I think then as room was made, different relationships started to present themselves to me. And there were even friendships I cycled through that came into my life when I was sober that I outgrew, because I think that's one of the reason, season, lifetime, right? Like, there's people that come in for a minute, people that come in for a while, and people that are here forever to stay. And it's been very true for me.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Tempest Sobriety School.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, Tempest Sobriety School is an outgrowth of my own experience, which is creating something that I needed at the time that I was recovering that didn't exist, which is community, but also, like, there's so much to navigate when you're recovering. It is your whole entire existence is brought into it. We've talked about, just a fraction of the things that we deal with.
Yeah.
And so I created a modality that I started. It was known as Hip Sobriety School.
Right.
That was just meant to teach people the entire spectrum of what addiction is and how to create care plans for themselves that are evolving, and to find community in that space that honors different paths and also honors the cyclical nature of ourselves. I think that meets us where we're at continuously and constantly, and that really flips a lot of these ideas on their head that we've come to accept about recovery, such as failure is a terrible thing, or that the only goal is sobriety, or that the weight of it is abstinence. That's right. And so we are a holistic, modern recovery program that helps people to conceptualize and also carry out their recovery plans in a community with support.
Yeah. Is it brick and mortar or is it online?
It's all online.
It's all online. Okay.
We have in real life events in about 12 cities right now, and we're expanding that.
I've seen those events. Taking place, and
they're growing and expanding, and it's really beautiful. And I think I was at a book event last night, and someone asked me, what do you tell people? Because AA, the community of AA was just so important. This woman stood up and said the community of AA was so important to her healing. And, And I said, that's just so absolutely right. We need to have community. Like, having people is one of the most important pieces of this entire thing. And so when AA is not your thing, it really does leave you out. And so for me, and I created a meetup group called Sobriety Club for Girls when I was starting this. It was not well attended. But I think like what we've tried to do is just to really like use what we can in terms of creating access in a digital modality, and also to infuse that with real life connection and creating space for people to come together and know each other.
Is it all women?
No, it's not.
It's mixed.
It's mixed, that's right.
Mixed meeting.
Yes.
Mixed community.
Well, we gender nonconforming and women were meeting, we're our only two genders that we had at the beginning. And we now have like LGBTQIA groups that are all gender. But
cool.
Do
people from 12-step meetings come to your community as well?
Yeah.
And enjoy it, and they can kind of dip in and out or just be a part of it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have individuals that have this is their first, experience in recovery. We have people that are actively engaged in AA. We have people that have left the program. I mean, it's just what you can imagine.
Yeah.
A group of people.
It's pretty amazing.
It is amazing. Yeah. It's the best part.
Yeah.
I'm such an introvert, and the best part of this is the people that you meet and the people that you get to, that is the best part of this, hands down. It's just connecting with people in that way where you know why you're connecting. You know why you're both there.
Yeah. And it does remove the shame and the stigma.
Yeah.
When it's not I.
Yeah.
But we.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
We're going to go to the part of the interview where we talk about where we answer the fan letter from Dear Laura. This is actually from our Facebook group. They knew you were coming, so this was one of the questions that they had for you. So instead of really Dear Laura, this would be Dear Holly. I enjoy wine, and I really enjoy wine with meals and margaritas with taco night. And I struggle with it back and forth whether I should feel guilty for it or if it's normal. Alcohol is so ingrained in all social events that it sort of becomes difficult to attend one if you're not drinking. I think because alcoholism is a disease, some people forget that. I declined several parties because I didn't want to make the choice to abstain or explain.
Yeah.
So, when I read that, I was like, oh, and then, oh.
Yeah.
Oh, she enjoys wine, and margaritas. I'm like, oh, okay. And then she's also trying not to, it sounds like. She's trying to abstain. And it sounds like the reason that she is conflicted is because she doesn't want to be judged for it.
Yeah.
Right?
I know, isn't that great? I think that's what I see as opportunity, right? Which is understanding the places where we have a personal, first of all, we're in process and we're figuring out, oh, I'm leaving this thing behind. Oh, I'm going to miss this thing. Or, oh, I feel guilty while I'm doing this thing.
Yeah.
So much awareness around that. And then also this oh, and also I want this other thing. And what's keeping me back is, what are they going to think, or how hard is it going to be?
Yeah.
Or this belief that you actually can enjoy an event where alcohol is and you're not drinking, which, as you two talked about at the beginning, it's not life without alcohol, it's just life.
Yeah.
But that is a very hard thing to consider when you're first moving into this, which is how is that going to be? I couldn't imagine vacationing and not drink. I couldn't fathom it. That was mind-blowing to me. And now I've, traveled extensively, and alcohol doesn't even come into the picture.
So I know that there are people like me out there who very innocently and like I said, ignorantly, don't understand why you can't imbibe.
That's right.
Why you're not having fun if you don't.
Yeah,
right?
That's right.
Which is exactly what I thought. And once I found out that she wasn't drinking, I didn't want to invite her to my dinner parties anymore.
That's right. No, I mean, I never wanted to hang out with sober people when I was drinking,
So I think that this woman is probably not imagining that she's being kind of met with that kind of resistance.
Oh, yeah.
I think that the only way, to the other side of this, or, anywhere to the other side of this is through it. You just have to practice.
You do. And the thing is about this, when you start moving towards what you want, when you align with what you want and you start moving toward it, other things fall away and room gets made. And either room gets made in the current relationships you have.
Right.
Or it gets made with like better relationships that are on their way that will support you in your decision. I think it's one of the most, and doing that, being willing to go into something that is so terrifying and moving against the grain, doing it in this one situation expands and extends into all of these other things.
Yes.
So that you like start to actually live with that bravery and that courage, and it allows you to do things you didn't think you were going to be able to do otherwise.
It does. Well, you look back and say, well, it's almost a little bit of like what you talked about, but kind of the opposite, as your brain does remember that you got through this.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's possible.
Yes.
Once you start habituating it the other way.
Yeah.
And it also helps to have an ally.
It really does.
It really does.
It
to have someone at that dinner party who's like, no, I'm cool too.
Yeah.
Or, or like, oh no, whatever, just to be in solidarity with you.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So
that definitely helps.
Yeah.
And how can you do that? Like you can, I'm assuming you can call ahead and talk to your host about it, right?
Yeah.
Like, and just tell them what's up. And I think we often underestimate like how much people are willing to, stand up for us and like sit with us through this kind of stuff. And so
truly,
when we just are honest about it and telling people what we're doing. But I know so many people that when they quit drinking are trying to be so hush about it and they don't want anybody to know.
Yeah.
For so many good reasons, but
yeah, and it's just being that vulnerable.
Yeah.
Like Scott and I, when we go out to dinner with our friends and they drink wine, first of all, if they don't drink wine because we don't drink, that's awkward.
Yeah.
Like, please drink.
Yeah, I know.
You might be more fun for us if you drink.
I know, please do it. I know, I'm the same, like, good, you're drinking, great, yes.
Now, if it's a tequila party, I'm probably not going.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to have fun. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. Like, you can have, like, that is the thing. It's just knowing where you're going to have fun and where you're not going to have fun.
Right.
Like, going out to, like, I'm not going to a club.
No.
And, like, that's just, and I tried it.
Yeah.
And it was awful,
Yes.
But, like, I'll definitely.
You need alcohol for a club.
That's
or at
right.
least some
Or,
weed.
like, because, and mostly just because of how drunk people are by the time,
Yeah.
But I think there's so many different things where alcohol is present. I don't even know, I just don't even notice it anymore.
Me either.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a big deal.
No.
Unless someone makes it a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're on a book tour now.
Yes.
How long do you think that's going? How long are you going to be on this tour?
Like 6 months. We're stretching it out. I also run a company, and I think like to go and do 15 stops or 20 stops in 6 weeks is impossible.
Yes.
And so, but I am going to be in Australia at the end of this, and that's when we're calling it quits. And so that's in June. I'm speaking at Vivid, and then I'm also, which is a cultural event there, and then I'm also going to do a couple book stops. But yeah, for about 6 months, I'm doing this, and it's also just a really good chance to again create community.
Yes,
where community is desired
and raise awareness.
Yeah, that's right.
So we'll make sure that the link to your book tour dates are in this episode.
Yeah.
So people can look it up and see where they can join you.
Thank you.
Get a ticket to Australia.
Yeah.
Where can people find you on social media?
My handle is @Holly on Instagram, and I stopped using Facebook, so mostly just Instagram.
Twitter?
No.
No.
Why no?
It's a cesspool. I can't. I have no interest. I tried.
Yeah.
My mom is 75, and she's very active on Twitter, so people should follow her.
She's downstairs right now.
Yeah, she is.
What's your mom's
is.
handle?
Oh my God, I don't even know.
Okay,
How many people know their moms?
I don't know. But she's severely political. She got, after the 2016 election, she got very involved on Twitter, and so that's her platform. But I don't go near it.
Okay, that's really funny.
It is really funny.
But your posts on our IG are just like poetry, visual poetry and poetry. I love them.
Thank you.
I'm so glad I follow you.